to bring in Hassan Shibly, the executive director for the Tampa branch of the Council on American-Islamic Relations, joining us now with the reaction. Hassan, good morning to you. Thanks for coming on.
Good morning.
Hey, let's start with you watched the speech last night. What was your reaction?
Well, I think it was important to hear the message emphasize the call for unity, that we cannot allow our enemies abroad to divide us here at home and turn us against each other as Americans, because that's exactly what they want. Rather, we must stand united against all forms of violence. And frankly, regardless of race or religion, while we appreciated the message, the president's message last night, you know, where was this message after the 353 other mass shootings, especially the Planned Parenthood shooting that happened by white Christian extremists only the day before? It's important we recognize that terrorism knows no ethnicity or religion or race.
Now, when you're talking about unity, the president called on the Muslim communities and enlisting their help and support in stopping jihadists in the United States.
Well, in fact, many of those who are accused of engaging in terrorism activity who happen to be members of the Muslim community have often been turned in by other members of the American Muslim community. The American Muslim community stands very loud and clear against violence. Look, it doesn't take a genius to figure out if you're a human being with a soul and a heart and you're not deranged, it doesn't matter what your religion is, you're going to be against violence, and that's why we must stand united.
Okay, so you say that the speech was a little too late, I guess. Sort of paraphrasing here. I guess.
Well, I don't think he was soft on the issue. However, I do believe he ignored one of the root causes, which is Assad. We have to remember, ISIS in Syria would not exist today without two things. One, the illegal invasion of Iraq, which destabilized the region and led to the creation of ISIS. And then secondly, the continued destruction that Assad is visiting upon the Syrian people in the Middle East. He's killed hundreds of thousands of civilians. He's the biggest recruiter and supporter of Assad, frankly, of ISIS, frankly, by the destruction he's causing in the Middle East. So as long as Assad is there, ISIS is not going to go. So it's important here as Americans, we stand united, we don't turn against each other. At the same time, it's important that any foreign policy includes the removal of Assad, because as long as Assad is in power, ISIS will thrive, and the American people must recognize that.
And I think one of the missions of the speech last night was to put some of the fears of the Muslim community to bed and ending some of the stereotypes. Have you seen any of those stereotypes or any of the fears growing since the last couple of attacks, San Bernardino and Paris?
Correct. What I appreciated about the president's message is that he highlighted that, in fact, the biggest victims, over 95% of the victims of ISIS, are Muslims. And frankly, those that are fighting ISIS on the ground are mostly Muslims. Muslims are the biggest victims, and they're the biggest force fighting against ISIS. But unfortunately, too often, some of us misinformed Americans often turn against each other because of the propaganda of groups like ISIS and other hate groups. So in the last couple of weeks, we've dealt with over a dozen hate crimes. Just as early 2 days ago, a mosque in Florida was vandalized. We've had death threats against Muslim community centers, people brutally attacked because people perceive them to be Muslim. That's not what America's about. The most important thing we can do is stay united. We cannot allow our enemies to divide us. Let's stand strong as Americans together, regardless of our race or religion, because that's what makes America great, and that's the best way to counter the extremism of ISIS.
Adding on to that point, presidential candidate Marco Rubio said yesterday in his reaction to the speech, quote, where is there widespread evidence that we have a problem in America with discrimination against Muslims?
I mean, Rubio is completely disconnected from reality. Shame on him. As the largest American Muslim civil rights organization, we call out Rubio for his insensitive and disconnected from reality statements. The reality is, I mean, just watch the news. Look at what the leading political candidates from Rubio's party are saying. I mean, Trump is openly calling for there to be databases of Muslims, for special ID cards for Muslims. My office receives over 1,000 calls for help a year just in Florida by Muslims who have faced discrimination. That, in fact, the FBI's latest data has shown that hate crimes are going down, except hate crimes against Muslims. They're on the increase. Rubio needs to stop with this inflammatory rhetoric and connect with the Muslim community, which is very vibrant and contributes very positively here in Florida and nationwide.
All right, Hassan, we could talk about this all morning long, but I'm getting a wrap from the producer. So Hassan Shibly, Executive Director for the Tampa branch of the Council on American-Islamic Relations. Hassan, thanks for coming on this morning.
Thank you, and God bless.